morning, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Feels like a proper podcast studio here. And today we're excited to talk about on-chain data. My name is Arnaud. I'm with Dune, previously known as Dune Analytics, not to be confused by the movie. We have a leading on-chain data platforms. We work with crypto companies, institution, government who need access to on-chain data. Today I have an amazing friends and panelists. They are all experts in the field. I was on a panel yesterday. Some people spend 10 minutes to introduce themselves. So I'm going to introduce you so we can jump straight to the topic. We have James, who lead on-chain data at Coinbase, recently acquired from the Spindle team. We have Danning, who lead research at Pantera Capital. And then lastly, we have Kite, who is research and data at Uniswap. So no need for introduction for those companies. And what we want to talk about today is really the dynamic between how to make decision with on-chain data. You know, most of the companies are data rich, but often decision or information poor. So I'll start with you, Kite. So I know you come from the academia world, and what was the moment where you decided to move on-chain? And I know you've been some interesting thing at Uniswap when it comes to user being exposed to sandwich attack and how those on-chain data had drove a decision to make those product change.
Right. So the moment that I realized that I want to do this on-chain is exactly what you said, that we have tons of data. And as a grad student, you have found getting data so hard. You either have to FOIA and then wait for a very long process to get the data, or you have to collect your own data, or you have to pay tons of money to get data. Versus if you look at all the DeFi data that we have, you can query all of them on Dune. And you can just do your analysis and start researching stuff. So I think that's the moment I was like, I really want to do this. I really want to do analysis in these on-chain environments. Right, and about the default paper. So it's been historically known in economics that the default option really shapes people's behavior. People really overwhelmingly kind of stick with the default options, from 401k enrollment to menu design. So the DeFi is no exceptions. So we have these like slippage protection, for example, that there's a default option people really often stick to. You don't want to set them too high such that you are exposed to MAV attack. You don't want to set them too low such that you will have your transaction reverted. And you have to pay gas, which is very annoying. So we were looking at this data and was like, can we improve this from the on-chain data that we observe, from the gas that we see, from the transaction size? So over the years, we have iterated more and more versions of this, and then try to look at how can we better have our user protected from these on-chain data.
And I know pivoting for you, Danning, so I know you can rant on-chain data for a very long time. I saw your podcast, amazing, with Dobby and Boxer. And from a decision-making standpoint, I'm curious to see, have you heard a pitch from a company that tells a very different story from what you saw when you're looking at the data?
Yeah, I think I'll give an example of like a whole sector, maybe not exactly just one pitch, but like this actually we also mentioned at the data podcast. Basically like DePIN as a category was kind of like popular for a while. It was maybe a little bit overhyped, but then it's so dead right now. Like the market cap of the whole category has dropped like by 99%. But what people haven't noticed if they checked on chain is that like the revenue generation actually went from less than 1 million to over 70 million among the major company for last year. And a lot of them are moving those like accounting of revenue on chain as well, like they're logging them on chain, so which is awesome change. But like we're seeing then now like some investment are again going back to DePIN and getting some interest. So it's like kind of like a cycle of like you get informed by on-chain metrics, then you realize a lot of stuff are underpriced. So
interesting. And I know for you, James, so you work a little bit on a very unique problem to solve, which is attribution, right? And how to work with ads. Maybe talk a little bit about that concept, maybe for the audience who might not be familiar of Spindle, obviously now part of Coinbase, and curious like how you're working on that from an on-chain attribution perspective.
Yeah, thanks, Arnaud. So maybe to set the stage, let me lead with the spindle pitch, which we've been building this product for over 3 years. The inherent problem with Web2 advertising to crypto companies is that it doesn't have the full picture of the user funnel. For example, you might know which user click on your ad, but you need the on-chain data side to complete the picture of who actually completed deposit, who actually have the swap. All the data doesn't live on users' their cookie, but they live on the blockchain. And what Spindle does is we establish this two-sides data collection process. We have the SDK for the publisher and advertiser to send us their Web2 events. And then we have the blockchain ingestion engine to get the contract conversion events, to get all the on-chain conversion from the data. So some examples that we are really proud of. Morpho, they really love us to run all kinds of campaigns through all the publishers that we have. They actually found that using our channel, the ads perform 6x better in conversion rate compared to like a Google and Twitter. And because we treat wallet address as first-party citizen, we know exactly what's happening for the wallet, how likely it is to convert, and therefore we can better target and personalize the ads for them. GMX, a perp DEX who has a lot of on-chain volume, use us to drive their trading competition. And as a result, with only 12K of spend, they generate $25 million of on-chain volume. And that's like $1 spent to get over 2K of on-chain volume. The fact that we can even speak to this these stats shows like how we are completing this on-chain data funnel and why this is a great solution for the unique problem of Web3 Web3 ads.
Yeah, trading wallet at first-class citizen. I think it's a great way to put it. Danning, you put a tweet. Obviously, the Super Bowl was not that long ago. I know you've been diving in prediction market in that.
Oh yeah.
And maybe you can talk to us a little bit about what have you learned and maybe what people assume that may be wrong when they think about prediction market and on-chain data.
Yeah,
And
actually
bring the mic a little bit closer. I
okay,
think
yeah. There's actually two parts of this analysis. The first preliminary one I did was basically pull all the trades on Polymarket from Dune. It's on Polygon. To look at like how does the volume accumulate over time for different type of prediction markets. Because like going into this analysis, like I feel like you have to be very aware that prediction markets host a lot of type of markets that are very different in terms of like how the information accumulates and aggregates. So for example, if it's like a political news or like Trump versus like sports betting, they show very different like behavior in terms of like pattern. If you look on chain, you see that like sports betting bets all volume are coming in like steadily over time because people are already betting on the historical like game information, knowing how these two teams are comparing to each other. But then for the news one, it's so unpredictable or uncertain till the very last minute or any like news come out. So you see very spiky and also like volume accumulates in the very last minute to arrive. So that was one insight that was very interesting. The other thing about Super Bowl particularly was we also then pulled data from Kalshi on their API to compare these two major platforms across all the NFL basically football games. And we saw that like Kalshi's trades actually leads by a median of 7 seconds compared to Polymarket. So like if you compare the price timing was ESPN, like the sports timing number, timestamp, you see that like Kalshi's price like instantly reflect after like a scoring or like a touchdown or something. But Polymarket actually like lags a little bit. And then you dig further, you realize actually there's like a speed bump for Polymarket. So if you're a user there's 3 seconds delay for it. So it's like super interesting. Like we looked into data first and then we realized a lot of like design of the markets are different. Yeah.
Very interesting. If you are into prediction market, go talk to Danning. She can help you with your next bet. I guess that's the point.
Would love to learn more.
So Kite, you talked a little bit about slippage earlier today. Can you give us maybe, Uniswap, it's all about improving the protocol, right, constantly. Maybe can you give us another example where you leverage on-chain data to let maybe like a new product design?
Sure, yeah. I guess one of the example is if we look at stable coin markets. At first glance, it's really easy market if you think about it. They're pegged 1-to-1, and you just narrow your range, and then you have a narrow range, and then you'll be able to maximize your capital efficiency. But if you really dive into the on-chain data of these transactions, you actually see a lot of like toxic flow. You actually see a lot of sandwich activities happening. So all of those what helps us better understand the market microstructures, and then such how we design different hooks for potentially different usage of the Uniswap liquidity pools.
Interesting. I know, James, you guys work on the Build a Code initiative you were telling me, and the new standard, the ERC 8021, right? And I always thought like airdrops has a pretty terrible attribution. It's kind of like spray and pray and hope that it works. How are you guys thinking at Base about attribution investment? How are you using the data perhaps differently? What's farming versus actual sustained growth?
Yes, airdrops and all this Base is exploring the launch of a token. It's a very interesting data problem, and we're very glad the Spindle team is leading the Base growth team to investigate this initiative. And we see this inherently as a data problem because when we look at the history of the airdrops and the token, the chain grants that has used like reward incentives, they rarely works. Most of them, they can't really say, hey, this is the amount of money we spend, this is the ROI, return of investment, and it's hard to get a positive ROI or even say what is the ROI is. And we see that because we see that inherently as a data lacking problem. And this is what Builder Code and ERC 8021 is trying to solve. It's trying to write more of the standardized off-chain data to standardize it on-chain. So currently, if a user does something on Base, maybe a swap or a deposit on Morpho, you can see user interact with the Uniswap contract or the Morpho pool contract, right? But you can't really know which wallet or which platform, which user interface is driving this user, is funneling this user to go there. And we want to know this because we want to reward such good behavior and penalize all the farming or the civil all the bots activity that is not really generate inherent value to the chain, but those good behaviors we want to reward. By having this observability, it is very important. And this is what Builder Code trying to do. It is a suffix written, appended on the call data of each transaction. By getting this adopted to all the dApps, they are able to say, hey, Uniswap wallet drive the user to conduct this transaction. Morpho or Gauntlet or Coinbase wallet or a mini app inside the Base app is driving this user to do this deposit, do this action. And therefore, we can more precisely target and give out the reward to either the user or the project, and therefore complete this entire data flow funnel. And as I said, bring more the off-chain, very unstandardized, using a lot of doom wizardry, hackery data to actually a standardized way to get it on-chain. You can see it, everyone can use the call data suffix to get that. So yeah, this is the initiative we try to push, and we're trying to build a data infra so that we can have a complete picture to run those campaigns and potentially conduct a really good airdrop in the future.
I think this is fascinating because I feel like in the past, the only way to mark basically front-end entry point is router.
Yes.
So like you can label all these router and say like this is from this DEX front-end, this is from this like maybe like wallet swap. But like there's this problem who can never answer, which is how much market share each wallet has. But then now if you have a label in the transaction in the call data, then you know.
Yeah, exactly. Let me give you an example. One of our advertiser, CowSwap, wants to only pay out their ads conversion if the user is completing the CowSwap transaction in their CowSwap wallet and have the MuleSound, right? Everybody knows that. But the data is not there on chain. You cannot find the data on chain. But Builder Code provides a perfect solution for that. If their smart contract team, which we are working on, which we're talking to, is willing to write that data suffix in the call data, we'll be able to have the entire picture and know exactly how much volume they drive to the chain, to the ecosystem, not just ads, but all their organic growth campaigns as well.
Interesting, you were talking about some data that might not be available, and I want to have your perspective on kind of a data gap. Like if you have a magic wand and says, I want this data available today, but it's not because it would really help me answer a question. Like, what would that type of data be? Maybe Danny, you can start.
Yeah, like the wallet labeling of that would be one good example. I feel like also this really hard problem of like how to label all the transactions across chain now. There's all these interop and like bridge and like intense protocol that's going on. And I know HillDobby is trying to build data set on that. Also, there's actually this data set, I think maybe a little bit more closer to the liquid team, like the trading team for a VC. You know, like they asked the question about like looking at the token price. Like we don't want to talk about price, but still, if you look at the token price, you pretty much know like when the price crashes because there's an unlock of a vesting of an investor. So like all these like vesting schedule and also how much distribution, all these doesn't exist on chain. And if they can be clearly labeled, I think it will give also a much better picture of how like all these token performance are going on and why. Yeah.
How about you, Kite? Any question you've been dying to answer, and either you can or the data is not there? Like,
I think if you ask any economist, the answer will be, I want the counterfactual. I want, so in the data, we only observe what happened, but we don't know what would have happened if it goes to a different route, if it goes to a different wallet, if it goes through a different pool. I think that will be a huge unlock. If we were to able to observe the counterfactuals of things, it will allow us to do a lot more casual inferences.
So it's like can give us a lot of benchmarking analysis, I see.
Exactly.
Yeah, the economist side of Kite is building a lot of control, or not control, but natural experiment. Everyone read the Uniswap paper on the fee switch. That's so good.
Exactly.
and Danning, from an investment perspective, like how do you separate the real growth from like farm metrics? I think everybody asks me when I work at Dune, like what's the top metrics that you think and what you should not think about. I think like, what's your perspective on what really matters and how do you separate the noise when you make an investment on Pantera?
Yeah, I think like maybe a few approach here, which is like we all know like there's token incentive or like people are farming, and so usually the protocol they try to raise money when they launch the token or right after, or like when their performance like TVL looks good, but we also know that it's probably not organic, and if you can, maybe look at like the volume before and after the incentive stop, right? Like whenever the snapshot was taken by the airdrop like timeline, after that, how does the volume look like? There's many other metrics you can try to wash the bubbly part off, which is, for example, like I remember there was a lot of perp decks coming up and they have crazy volume, but like if you look at the ratio of open interest versus volume, then you realize like actually there's not much capital actually locked in this protocol. They're just washing, trading back and forth. I think oftentimes it's a shame, but we also fall back to like Web 2 metrics, which is like if you're building a consumer metrics, how does your actual like front-end activity, active user are? But also you don't want to just look at user who are looking at the website, but also more have like an action of querying something or like transacting something. So monthly active user who is transacting, something like that. But yeah, I think like we all are constantly battling or fighting against basically the artificial incentive.
Of course, yeah. So we talk about a lot of topic. We talk about airdrop, prediction market, investment, attribution. Maybe curious to hear from you, James, as you work. Coinbase is clearly a blue chip across literally every product line, probably in crypto and beyond. Like, do you think there's an area of like on-chain data that is a little bit underappreciated right now? Like, what are people are not talking about and they should be? Because I think at Coinbase you really have the 360. Like, what would be that area that people need to pay a little bit more attention to now?
Yeah, I
and
think
you cannot say spindle or ads, okay?
I think the overall strategy of the base growth team is to have this complete picture of off-chain data, on-chain data. We all treat them as events, right? Inherently, there's no difference between a user who click a button and do a transaction on-chain versus user click a button of maybe ads, maybe other things, or incentive campaigns on other platform surface of Coinbase retail app or the base app, right? So we all treat them as events. I think the mission of our growth team is to try to complete this entire funnel of the user journey. Right now, it's very interesting that we can deduce so much information from do analytics. We have done so many different tricks in using the router, using the feed, using all those on-chain sleuths to get maybe 70, 80% there in terms of understanding what the user actually does. But without the off-chain piece, I feel like this is still an incomplete cycle of the user journey. And therefore, it's hard to measure, hard to reward, hard to really do repeatable experiment on top of that, and easy to game as a result. I think in the age where we're moving more towards an agentic future, where human clicking is going to be replaced by more like bots and stuff, and some of the bots are not even malicious, but even necessary and very important for the ecosystem. This point stays even more true, that we need to understand the entire journey of how a user or a bot is like doing certain action, either on the front end or the back end or the blockchain. And we're in a very good position to build out all of that with the initiatives that we are doing.
Yep, and you were talking about future. We only have a few minutes left here. Maybe Kite, I'd be curious to hear from you. 2030, right? 4 years from now, okay?
Right.
What are a decision that you think people made today, and when we're going to look back, we're going to say, you guys were completely wrong. This was wrong because you guys didn't pay attention to the data.
I think something related to what James said. I think these like distributions, you have different mechanisms designed which would cause different actions, different behaviors. If you look at airdrops, that's going to be different. If your token distribution is different. And I think not looking at the behavior after each different protocol designs that we see is going to be costly. And then I think people should pay more attention to those distribution outcomes.
Yep. Dining, the last one. I want a big, no fluffy one. Like, what would be something looking back that you say is, we were all wrong, or at least I told you guys, but you didn't look at the data.
Yeah, so this might be a contrarian take, but I feel like one thing I'm questioning right now is like we all hate speculation. We all hate like, oh, this is just meme coin gambling, but like maybe speculation will not go away. Like it will be a forever needs by people. Like we build all these rails in blockchain, and right now it's kind of dystopian that only a meme coin like trading bots or like prediction market, which is also kind of gambling, is taking off. But maybe that's what people want, and we should be proud of it.
100%. Well, that's going to be a wrap for us. I hope you enjoyed nerding around on-chain data. Kite at Uniswap use on-chain data to ship product changes. Danning at Pantera does this to deploy capital. And James does this to close the growth loop. At Dune, we try to encompass all of that. If you're interested in on-chain data, you can access it through our platform. We have a booth over there. We have an amazing team around. So if you're interested in accessing on-chain data, please come talk to us. And thanks for everyone in the room and watching online.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.